Welcome to an episode of Jazz Sports Talk, and welcome to Week 14 of the college football season. And this is going to be another fun-filled weekend of college action. Since Thanksgiving weekend, we have this huge plate of games sitting in front of us, and kind of go over a little bit of Week 13. I'm not going to do a quick-fire recap of the games. I've noticed doing that, it kind of deflates a lot of it. I will kind of talk about the CFP rankings, a little bit of blowback there, my updated point index, and we'll dive into Week 14 and get a little more nuance into that one. For Week 14, I'm not looking at those with winning records. I'm actually looking for particular games that have conference title implications. So winners have to win to get in, and a lot of them will have like a playoff implications as well. Because I think a few of these could lose this week and still make it into the playoff. All right, others, I don't think they can afford to lose anything like that again because of how the system is set up right now. So let's go ahead and look back at Week 13. I did those 10 games on the weekend, and a lot of these games, I kind of did stretch a bit. I ended up going 6-4, so had a winning record. I realized I don't know nothing about Conference USA because I got both of those games wrong. Arizona State decided to show up against BYU. BYU's continued to slide at the wrong time. And Pitt is no longer the Cardiac Cats of old. They're just struggling to limp past because they're into a little bit of a mash unit right now. We saw Kansas knock off Colorado for 3 straight upset wins. One more, and they're in the playoff, they'll be bowl eligible. Auburn upended A&M. Oklahoma derailed Alabama. We saw Florida knock off LSU. I mean, it was another wild weekend of upsets. Colorado State had a path to get into the Mountain West Championship, and Fresno State said, I don't know. There's so many different avenues, things that could happen that's really went out there. Like SEC, Georgia's in. So it doesn't really matter what happens. They're in. Doesn't matter if Tennessee's game, they're not going to make it. Tennessee's going to fight for a playoff spot this weekend, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Now we dive into the CFP, and the new rankings came out. The projected playoff rankings and standings and how the playoff form is going to go gives Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise State all first-round byes. Now remember, SMU is the better conference record than Miami. Yeah, they're in the same conference. So technically SMU should be up there higher, but this is just projected according to the ranking they're currently holding right now in the CFP. One of the first-round matches, Arizona State will visit Ohio State. Tennessee and Georgia will have a rematch. Indiana will take on Penn State. And SMU will head up to Notre Dame. So the ones that are looking out right now are Clemson and Alabama. Alabama being a 3-loss SEC school. I think Clemson, they can get past South Carolina. They'll definitely be right there inching to get into the field if someone decides to slip. And it looks kind of sketchy. Maybe if Indiana loses, they might switch Clemson and Indiana possibly. But beyond that, I don't see much change in terms of the standings unless there's like major upsets this weekend and then conference championship weekend. And with polls, you're dealing with a human factor. Even the computer polls, there's still a human behind the engineering of the program to rank everyone. Even mine kind of looks down the SEC a little bit more than any other conference. Or maybe I just don't believe in all the hype. I don't know, because I look at their strength of schedule, strength of victory. So let's just dive into mine before I continue to dig my own grave. So my new polls, number 25, Army stays put after getting beaten by Notre Dame over there at Yankee Stadium. UNLV moves up 1 with their huge in-state rivalry game coming up. Illinois returns to the top 25. Ole Miss falls to 16 after they stumbled. South Carolina stays put. Syracuse up 3 to number 20. A&M only drops 2 after losing to Auburn. Oklahoma drops 5 after losing to Kansas. K-State moves up 5 to 17, and their game next week is going to be huge. Tennessee's up 3 to number 16. I think the reason why theirs is a little low is, well, their strength of victory and strength of schedule is not the best. It's like slightly over, their strength of victory is under 400. Strength of schedule is just under 450. So definitely not, the cream of the crop. But I think if they can beat Vanderbilt, I think they can punch their ticket into the college football playoff. We'll see what happens in my rankings. Let's see, at number 15, that's where we find Boise State, up 5. Alabama drops 3 after losing to Oklahoma. Clemson drops 1. BYU drops 5 after losing to Arizona State. Iowa State's up 4 to number 11. I have Arizona State in the top 10. Now, I know the CFP, they have Arizona State, Iowa State, and BYU a lot lower, and a lot of the SEC schools up higher. But Arizona State's going to be that little quiet school no one's talking about, and probably wreck some stuff. But being number 10 puts the ball in their court. At number 9, I have Georgia up 1. Indiana drops 6 to number 8. Miami's up 2 to number 7. I got SMU at number 6, also up 2. Notre Dame dropped 2 positions after beating Army. Penn State up 2. Texas is up 2. Ohio State is up 2. And Oregon still maintains the number 1 poll position. So let's just go ahead and dive into 10 games I have listed on both Friday and Saturday. So there's going to be no Egg Bowl, no Iron Bowl, no good old-fashioned hate. A lot of the big-name rivalry games are going to be out of the question. Washington, Oregon should be an interesting one as well. Notre Dame, USC is not being looked at. So even though there's a lot of big-name rivalries out there, I'm not touching a lot of them. Like I said, I'm just touching the ones that have implications for conference championship games. So there will be losing teams in this weekend's forecast. So let's start things off in MAC Nation. Way over to Bowling Green, Ohio, as the Falcons will play host to the Miami Redhawks. Both schools are 6-1. The winner of this game will go to Detroit for the MAC championship. And looking at the past 5 weeks, Bowling Green has been steadily a good defense. The only issue they had was their rivalry game against Toledo, where they allowed 26 points, but their offense was on point in that game. Miami's the same thing. The only scare they really had, well, they actually had 2 scares. Ball State, where they ended up slipping past 27-21, and then the game versus Ohio, where they won by 10. And Gabbert for the Red Hawks, over 2,300 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. While Baslak, almost 2,500 yards in the air, 50 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Almost identical passing attack. So it's going to kind of run down to the running attack. And Mose for Miami, 937 yards, 3 touchdowns. But Stewart, 856, 6 touchdowns. So it looked like very similar defenses, very similar offenses. The offenses were going to have to score a lot for the Red Hawks. Their defense really sets the tone. And looking at like pass interactions between these two, it's the face-off is like against Central Michigan. Miami had a better going than Bowling Green, but against Bowling Green had better going than Miami. And then with Kent, they both kind of struck a little bit, but Miami had a little more offensive numbers. But right now, analytics has it at 58% to Bowling Green. The spread also gives it to Bowling Green at 2.5. I'm going to get to Miami. Right now, statistically, they're sitting on top of the MAC anyways between the three programs that are tied for the MAC. There's three of them at 6-1, Ohio being the third member. I don't know, it just looks like the defense for Miami seems to be a little bit better, and Miami just takes what they're given. I get it's Bowling Green, and they're doing extremely well as well. It's just going to be a hard thing. I think it's a coin flip between these two. But I am taking the Red Hawks to win and get into Detroit for the MAC championship. On the other side of the coin, we'll have Ball State taking on Ohio. And Ball State is just a complete mess. Analytics, 87% for the Bobcats. They have a 14.5-point spread. Navarro, passing-wise, not the greatest. As long as Tyus can be effective on the ground because he's 850-yard rusher. As long as that defense is on point, which they have been, and taking on a very almost poor Ball State. I mean, they do still put up numbers. I mean, they had a 48 against Buffalo. They had 21 against Miami, 23 against Northern Illinois. So they're able to generate some points, and those games were close. Buffalo, overtime. Miami, they lost by 6. Northern Illinois, they lost by 2. So they can put the fear into Ohio. However, I think because of the amount of interceptions Somoza does throw, but Navarro will keep it close just because he can. I might take Ball State for the points because I think 14.5 might be a bit over-exaggerated. But they look what they did against Bowling Green. They didn't really do much in terms of offense. So I still think Ohio's going to win by double digits. Maybe not 14, maybe a 13-point win. But I will definitely have Ohio win and make them also go into Detroit for the MAC championship. And apparently I haven't learned my lesson because we're going back to the Conference USA. Liberty and Sam Houston. These are two looking to get in. Jacksonville State's already punched their tickets. They're trying to figure out who they're going to face. This is the marquee game here. And there's still a little caveat that could actually happen as well. But it all depends on Sam Houston. Because right now the advantage is 58% analytic-wise to Sam Houston. But Liberty has a 2.5-point spread. And it's really because of Cooley for the Flames, who's just been a dominant force back there. He's now 1,100-plus yard rusher with 13 touchdowns. He was the main reason why Liberty beat up Western Kentucky last week, the one reason why it lost. Sam Houston had a lot of trouble last week against Jacksonville State, and I had him going to beat Jacksonville State. So this time around, I'm looking at Liberty right now. They're running a 3-game winning streak. They're doing extremely well. Sam Houston's been struggling these past 5 weeks. They still haven't finding wins because they had 2 baseball games against Florida National and Louisiana Tech when they end up winning. And then that overtime win against Kennesaw State by getting beat up by Western Kentucky. Jacksonville State beating them by 10. It's all a convoluted mess, but I do like Salter a little bit better. 18-yard passer, 14 touchdowns, 4 picks compared to Watson. For the Bearcats, 1,400-yard passer, 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. Ducker is only a 600-plus yard rusher with 7 touchdowns. So offensive line, Sam Houston is behind the eight ball a little bit. Their defense is a little bit better, and they should really stifle Salter and Coolio a bit. But I do think the Flames are just going to be too much to handle, too hot to hold. Sorry. But I do think Liberty's going to end up winning this game and punching their ticket into the Conference USA Championship. Well, now it's time to head to the game between Michigan and Ohio State. And can Daly finally beat Michigan? He's having a hard time recently. Maybe with no Harbaugh, no pressure. Howard right now, over 2,600 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, only 6 picks. Bourne, not that great passing-wise. But he has more interceptions than touchdowns at 7-6. Rushing goes more towards Michigan, with Mullings leading Junkins, 832 to 760. He also had 11 touchdowns compared to 8. So running rise is a little bit better edge with Michigan, but with Howard, you have a better offensive scheme with the Buckeyes, and they can alleviate a lot of stuff. And Michigan has been proven to be quite inept in a lot of aspects because the Illini beat them 21-7, Indiana 20-15, Oregon 38-17. So they're very inconsistent. That win against Northwestern doesn't really matter much. It just gets them their 6th victory. So they're going bowling this season. But this is not a very good year for Big Blue. Ohio State's favorite, 92% analytics. The spread has it at 22.5. They're expecting Ohio State to do to them what they did against Indiana. I don't see any difference. I do think Ohio State's going to win this game, punch their tickets to Indianapolis for a rematch with Oregon. Now we head to the Sun Belt, out to the Western Division, and Sun Belt's the only conference that's still running with divisions. Nothing like hanging on to the past. And for the Cajuns, they're looking at ways to try to get back into the Sun Belt Championship. They're going to take on their in-state rival. The Warhawks are definitely not going to make this easy for them because they need this one to become bowl eligible. And it's like, which quarterback are we going to look at more? We're going to look at Woodwidge or Armetta. Ben has almost 2,500 yards in the air, 17 touchdowns, 5 picks. Armetta, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 picks. So quarterback-wise, Woodwidge is definitely your quarterback of choice. Running attack-wise, Hardy for the Warhawks, almost 1,200 yards rushing with 12 touchdowns, while Davis is only 700 yards, 6 touchdowns, or 8 touchdowns, excuse me. But Monroe has been losing consistently, and that's part of their problem. They're on this huge losing streak, and it's kind of hard to see that action really transpire because last week they could have won against Arkansas State, lost by a touchdown. The other closest game was when they went to Marshall and lost by 5. In Louisiana, when they got a tough opponent, they do struggle. Look at what they did with South Alabama. They could have knocked them out and lost by 2. But they did beat Texas State by a score of 23-17. So it's one of these things where can Louisiana Monroe keep in check with the Raging Cajuns to make this more effective and find ways to upset their in-state rival and really throw the whole Western Division in a spiral effect because of Arkansas State and South Alabama both all tied with them and trying to figure out who's going to come out on top of this whole scenario. But I do think the Cajuns should find ways to maintain control and get in there. Analytic-wise, they're favored by 78%. They have a 10-point spread advantage. I will push back on that. I think I'll take Monroe for the points because I think Louisiana Monroe will make this tough with that being an in-state rivalry game. No love lost between these two programs at all. But I do think the Raging Cajuns will find ways to win this game, get their 10th victory, and punch their ticket to the Sun Belt Championship. Going up to upstate New York, an old Big East clash between Miami and Syracuse. Now, Syracuse really has nothing to play for. They're kind of sniffing around the bottom of the polls. They got a decent bowl game coming up, but they could play spoiler. And I think that's one of the things they're going to really look at to try to see if they can do this. And Miami's been one of these teams that have been living on the edge. They've been lucky in a few games. They got caught against Georgia Tech, and then they just obliterated Wake Forest. But it's Wake Forest, so no love lost there. And Syracuse has had some few games that after getting blown out by Pitt, has really rebounded nicely. Had an overtime win against Virginia Tech. Lost a one-score game to BC, but then edged out Cal, beat up UConn. And UConn was not really a slouch this year. So momentum right there is with McCord. And it's going to be a really good quarterback battle between McCord and Ward. And these two are going to be up there. I think Ward probably be in the conversation for the Heisman. There shouldn't be any too much pushback there. There's going to be Ward, Genty, Hunter out of Colorado. Should all be probably in that room looking to strike the pose. But McCord, almost 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks. Ward, 3,700 yards, 34 touchdowns, 7 picks. So definitely, and Ward has been really excelling in his role down there in South Beach. Martinez for the Hurricanes, 740 yards on the ground, 8 touchdowns. While Allen, 820 yards with 12 touchdowns. So running attack-wise, a little bit more Syracuse, but still kind of evenly managed offensive-wise. It's a defense is really going to have to thrive. And Miami tends to struggle in games. They find themselves behind the 8 ball early in games, but then come back. I mean, the prime example is Duke and Louisville. 2 games that probably could have lost, but their tenacity always made sure they came back. And that you went through the eye of the storm, but then you forgot about that back wall coming in and just wrecking havoc once again. And that's what happens when you play Miami. But Syracuse is not going to be easy out either. Like I said, they're looking to play spoiler. The thing is, all the pressure right now is on Miami. They have to win this game to get in. And they may lose out in the college football playoff. That one, I doubt. I do think they'll still make the playoff if they lose. I think depending on how they lose, though. But I do think they'll probably still get in there. But this is all the pressure on Miami to win this one. Syracuse has nothing to worry about. They have nothing to play for. They're in the bowls. I think the pressure that Miami's going to be on could play a factor in this game. And that's what I'm factoring in, because right now analytics has an 82% Miami. The spread right now is in favor of Miami by 12. Everything's pointing towards Miami. We have the Heisman caliber quarterback, Cam Ward. This team looking bright. I mean, they have the aspects of possibly having that first round bye, because they still got to get through SMU to do that first. But it's one of these scenarios that could really hamper them if they can't get in there. And I think the pressure might catch up to them. And I think Syracuse is going to find ways to edge out Miami, shock them at the last second, and end the Miami's possibility of an ACC title. Then we head back to Conference USA, as I am a glutton for punishment. Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky go at it. Like I said, Jacksonville State is in the Conference USA Championship. Western Kentucky needs a Sam Houston victory and them winning for them to get in and do a rematch with Jacksonville State. So a lot of things have to go in the Hilltopper's way. Sanders' way is going to be Huff. Almost 2,000 yards. 11 touchdowns, 5 picks. And Stewart, who was a 1,300-yard rusher, 19 touchdowns. And it's proven last week against Liberty, Western Kentucky can't stop a run. That defensive front is like a wet paper bag. You just bowl right through that one. Velkamp should post decent numbers. He definitely has that ability because he has over 2,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Young, decent bounce, about 650 yards, 3 touchdowns. And it's going to be, what it is. Can Jacksonville State just pound on Western Kentucky and just run the ball, control the clock? That makes Velkamp make inaccurate throws, which can lead to interceptions, and just exaggerate the issues they're going to have with this game. And they can't stop the run. That's it. The Hilltoppers are done, and they couldn't do it last week against Liberty when they had the opportunity. I don't think they'll do it this week either against Jacksonville State. And analytics, 53% Jacksonville State. The spread has at Western Kentucky by 2. However, I think it's going to be Jacksonville State. It's just that running attack by the Gamecocks is going to be too much for the Hilltoppers. Like I said, Gamecocks are already in the conference championship game. This is going to guarantee that they host the conference championship game. And I will give it to Jacksonville State. And another big-time matchup this Saturday is old school. They haven't faced off in some time since the days of the Big 12. The Longhorns of Texas will head to College Station and take on the Aggies at Texas A&M in a revival of a old stable of the old Southwest Conference. And this has SEC title game written all over it because the winner of this is in to take on Georgia. So, who are we going with? Ewers, over 2,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 picks. Reed, 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Wisemeyer, over 600 yards, 3 touchdowns rushing for the Longhorns. Moss, 765 yards, 10 touchdowns for the Aggies. A&M is looking to rebound off of that embarrassing loss in Auburn when they lost in 4 overtime periods, 43-41. Not to mention 2 weeks prior to that, losing to South Carolina on the road. But they've been very dominant at home, and it's one of the few things that they have done. The only at-home loss they've had so far was the loss to Notre Dame at the beginning of the season. And even then, they put up one heck of a fight. In Texas, they got tested by Arkansas. They got tested by Vanderbilt. Survived both of those. Couldn't survive against Georgia. They've looked good against bad teams, and with teams that play them tough, they struggle. And that's part of the problem with Texas. Now, I do think Texas will have a great game at College Station, but it's the home of the 12th man for the reason. Aggies and Longhorns do not like each other at all. This is old school rivalry right here. Analytics, 77% for the Longhorns. Texas has a 5.5 spread as well. This is going to have huge implications, but I think Texas can survive this game and still make the playoffs. A&M can't. Everything points towards Texas. All the advantage is on Texas. All the pressure is on Texas. Aggies have their own pressure because, like I said, it's a rivalry game, so they have their own pressure coming to this game. But they're also playing to defend their home turf. And it's going to be vital, I think, for them. That's why I'm going Aggies to beat the Longhorns and put a 3-loss team in the SEC championship game. This could really throw a monkey wrench in the whole college football playoff system. But I don't know. It's just Reed has really stepped up to the role recently to really kind of lead this team, and he's kind of really implemented that. Moss has been phenomenal. A&M's defense is going to give Ewers fits, and Ewers has trouble against good defenses, and it's been shown, especially against Georgia. Georgia wrecked him. Vanderbilt, he struggled against them, like struggled against Arkansas. So good defenses, he does struggle. He does beat a couple of them, But with potent offense to back those defenses, it's going to be different. A&M has that potent offense. I do think A&M edges out the Longhorns and punch their ticket to Atlanta. Now we head to the Mountain West. And we head to Las Vegas as the UNLV Rebels will play host to the in-state rival Nevada Wolfpack for the Fremont Cannon. And this one also has conference championship tie-ins because Colorado State ended up losing to Fresno State last week. So now Colorado State and UNLV are tied. And it all boils down to rankings because they don't face each other. So it puts UNLV ahead of them if UNLV wins. And Nevada has not. They've been putting up some good numbers. They lost by 3 to the Air Force, 7 to Boise State, 17 to Colorado State, 3 to Fresno State. So when the opponents have, they have been playing very close, a lot of one-score games, come up short. This is a rivalry game, so they're going to be a little bit more advantageous to stick it to the Rebels. And the Rebels need to find ways to get back and take on Boise State once again for back-to-back years. And Williams is going to lead the charge. Over 1,500 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks. Tom's behind him, almost 700 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns. On the opposite side, Lewis, almost 2,000-yard passer, 14 touchdowns, 6 picks. But also, the dual threat that he is, almost 750 yards rushing with 8 touchdowns. So UNLV's defense is going to have their hands full trying to contain Lewis to make sure he's a one-dimensional individual. And still being one-dimensional is going to be a hassle. But Nevada's defense is going to be the difference because they don't seem to be as prolific in stopping. I mean, they've had decent games in the past few weeks. Ish. I mean, 22 points won by Air Force, and that was like a second half where they just kind of collapsed, and Air Force showed up. Boise State was just Boise State. You couldn't stop Genty if you tried. If you put a brick wall in front of him, he's going to run through it. So it's going to be those type of things. I do think Nevada will make the point spread a lot better because right now UNLV has a 19-point spread, and analytic-wise, 88% advantage for them. Take Nevada for the points because I do think they'll make this close. I think it's going to be like a 10-point victory. But I am getting to the Rebels to punch their ticket back to the Mountain West Championship game. And we're close out this week in the Sun Belt with Marshall and James Madison. I don't think I mentioned neither one of these programs this entire year. James Madison has nothing to play for. He went 4-3 in conference play. The only thing they have going for him is spoilers because Marshall needs to win this to go in. If they don't, Georgia Southern would get the nod for the Sun Belt East to get into the championship. And look over the past 5 games for Marshall. They've had one close call. That was against Louisiana Monroe when they won by 5. But they didn't have much else. As you see, most of these programs don't have a lot going for them anyway, so it's going to be kind of hard to kind of measure how Marshall's going to handle this epic showdown. James Madison last week had a disappointing loss against Appalachian State, which took him out of the running for the division crown. So it's going to be up to Barnett with his almost 2,500 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 3 interceptions against Praxton's of the Third Ring Herd, 300 yards, 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Barnett's definitely a better passer for the Dukes. Running back wise, Turner for the Herd, almost 850 yards, 6 touchdowns. Petaway, 830 yards, 4 touchdowns. So almost identical rushing attacks. The Herd seems to be a little bit better rushing wise, but it's the defense going to play a huge factor. And Marshall gave up 35 to Old Dominion, but James Madison gave up 34 to App State. So both these are coming back. App State's looking to try to wash away that loss against the Mountaineers. Take on Marshall. Maybe do Georgia Southern a favor because James Madison's favored by 64% analytically. They have a 3-point spread as well. I like the Dukes in this one as well. I wish they were able to compete for the Sun Belt title, but getting a nice win here could give them a very good matchup in the bowls. But I'm taking James Madison up in Marshall's conference title dreams. Well, there you go. Those are my picks. I went over 10, the 3 on Friday. The rest of them were all Saturday games. 3 of Friday is, the 2 MAC games, and then Liberty and Sam Houston. Like I said, there's a lot of other games out there. I mentioned a few of them before I started the whole spread thing, and there are a lot of other ones I could have went. I could have went after Memphis and Tulane on Thursday. Didn't do that either. Doesn't really have much to go with it. South Carolina, Clemson. It's another huge rivalry game. That if Clemson does a win, they may not have. They're knocking on the door for the playoff either. So it's one of those things to kind of look at to see that this college football season is completely wild, this 12-team format. Of course, you're not going to make anyone happy. Even if you made it 64 teams, somebody's still going to complain about not being in. Always the case. You're never going to please everyone, but at least with this 12-team format, there's more advantages of people getting access to the playoff they couldn't have before to really, create that Cinderella moment that makes the NCAA tournament, men's basketball, women's basketball, so much more exciting. Who's going to be the Cinderella team, and it's what you can look for towards in this playoff scenario. Who's going to be your Cinderella? But let me know down in the comments below which game you thought I should have covered, which games you're looking forward to this weekend, how you feel about my picks. Do you think I'm a crazy old man that doesn't know what the hell he's talking about? I think I'd be possibly right. Next, mix it up. The more engagement you have, the better the algorithm boosts this video. Another thing you can do is hit that thumbs up. So I just stayed this long. Listen to my ramblings, side missions, and butchering the English language. It really helps me out. Another thing you can do is subscribe. A lot of you guys view my work. Now, when you subscribe, doesn't cost you a dime. You hit that subscribe button, click that bell icon, turn notifications so next time I post any more content on my channel. And I'll see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.